Okay, these notes are going to go in your journals when you're finished. We're going to be writing and solving equations using our geometric concepts. So your vocabulary is going to be very important. If you have your computer up, you can have your vocabulary terms also that are in Canvas. Question number 1 says that we have an hour and minute hand of a clock that's forming a 90-degree angle. We know we have a 90-degree angle at 3 o'clock. The second hand shown divides the angle into 2 complementary angles. And we know from our vocabulary that complementary angles are 2 angles whose sum, so when you add them together, 2 different angles, that equals exactly 90 degrees. So if you look right here, we've got this right angle, and it's being divided, you have a right angle right here, it's being divided by this line, which means that this angle right here plus this angle right here is going to equal 90 degrees because they are complementary angles. First thing here says write an equation to determine the value of x. So we're going to write an equation. We're going to write an equation based off the knowledge that we know that complementary angles are 2 angles that are added together to equal 90 degrees. So we're going to add these 2 angles together to equal 90 degrees. So we're going to have 5x plus 35 equals 90. That's our equation. Down here we're going to solve for x. So we're going to find the value of x. The value of x. So we have 5x plus 35 equals 90. We're solving 2-step equations like we did in Unit 7. We're going to subtract the constant from each side. That's going to zero out. So we're left with 5 times something equals 55. Then we're going to divide both sides by 5. So x is equal to 11. The value of x is 11. So if you go back up here, the value of that x is 11. So 5 times 11 equals 55 degrees. This is a 55-degree angle. Number 2, look at the sketch of the triangle below. The sum of the angles P and Q is 126 degrees. So we know that if we do P plus angle Q, we add these 2 angles together, that's going to equal 126 degrees. Write and solve an equation to determine the value of x. This is going to be one of our vocabulary terms where it's called the triangle sum theorem. If you add all the sides or angles inside of a triangle, it's going to equal 180 degrees. So what that means is that angle R plus angle P plus angle Q is going to equal 180 degrees. If I add all 3 of these together, that is going to equal 180 degrees. So I have to take the information that's given to me, 9x, and the sum of angles P and Q is 126 degrees, to be able to write my equation. So my equation is going to be 9x, coming from right here, plus this 126, because the sum of angle P and Q is 126 degrees, equals 180 degrees, because inside of a triangle there's 180 degrees. Now I can solve for x by subtracting, moving this over. So we get 9x equals 54. So 9x equals 54. I'm going to divide both sides by 9. X equals 6. That's the value of x. That's different from answering this next question, which is what is the measure of angle R? Angle R, if you look back at the picture, is 9 times x. So angle R is 9 times x. We need to substitute this 6 in for this x and solve. So we have 9 times 6, which equals 54 degrees. So the measure of angle R is 54 degrees. So there's an example where we were using the triangle sum theorem. We go on to number 3. Rachel frames a portrait to hang in her living room. The length of the frame measures 4.5 feet, and the frame has a perimeter of 16 feet. Write an equation that can be used to determine W, the width of the frame. Find the width of the picture frame, show all work. So we're going to write and solve an equation. The first thing you need to think about is perimeter. In order to find the perimeter of something, you have to add up all the sides. So we know the total around this picture frame is going to be 16 feet. And we're going to say, we know that the length is 4.5 feet, but we don't know the width. But we do know that with perimeter, we're going to add. So we're going to add 4.5 plus 4.5 plus x. And when we add all those sides together, we know that it's going to equal 16 feet. So what we have is 4.5 plus 4.5 plus x equals 16. Now you can add the numbers together. 4.5 and 4.5 is going to equal 9 plus, how many x's are here? We have 2 x's, so we're going to put 2x equals 16. This is just a 2-step equation that we can solve now. If you want to rewrite it, 2x plus 9 equals 16. That is the exact same thing as this right here. We're going to subtract 9. This zeroes out, so we have 2x equals 7. Divide both sides by 2. X equals 3.5 feet. So this x is 3.5 feet. This x is 3.5 feet. And if we added those all together, we would get back to 16 feet. Number 4, a pair of intersecting lines is shown below. Write one equation that could be used to determine the value of x using vertical angles. Vertical angles are opposite angles that are congruent, which means that they're equal. Okay, so we know we have opposite angles that are congruent. I know it says to write one equation. We're going to write 2. So the first pair of vertical angles is this angle right here and this angle right here. They are opposite of each other. They're diagonal from each other. So we know that if they're opposite, that they are congruent. And congruent means equal to each other. So to write an equation for this is actually really simple. We're going to take this angle, 5x minus 34 degrees equals, because they are congruent, to 101 degrees. And we're going to take our second pair of vertical angles, which will be the blue, here and here. Those are equal to each other. So we have 1/3 x plus 70 degrees equals, because opposite angles are congruent, so this right here is equal to 79 degrees. Next problem, write one equation that can be used to determine the value of x using linear angle pairs. Linear angle pairs is the same thing as adjacent angles. Make sure you write that down. Linear angle pairs are the same thing as adjacent angles. So, what that means is that this angle right here and this angle right here are adjacent angles. And they share this common point vertex in the middle and they don't overlap. They're side by side. So adjacent angles are side by side. They also are along this straight line. So when this angle and this angle are squished together, they make a straight line, and a straight line is equal to 180 degrees. So this pair equation that we could write is going to be 5x minus 34 degrees plus, so we have this, plus 79 degrees is going to equal 180 degrees. This straight line is where this 180 degrees is coming from. So if we do this plus this, it equals this straight line. So here's one equation. The next one let's do it in green. We'll do in green. So here's another, still along this straight line, we get this plus this, and it's still going to equal 180 degrees. So we have 1/3 x plus 70 degrees. So 1/3 x plus 70 degrees plus 101 equals 180 degrees. So there's examples of adjacent angles.